to all. Today's daf is Yerushalmi Brachot daf Mem Gimel. We are starting at the very top of the daf, and in the Vilna Tzuras daf, it's Chav Tes Amud Beis, the fifth line at the beginning of the line. And today's daf is sponsored Lili Nishmas Mars Miriam Sar Basar B'Yakov Moshe. Her neshama should have an aliyah. And the Gemara continues talking about tefillah, which is Shemona Esrei. Yachol Yehem Yispal L'Chol Ruach Sheyirtzeh. One might think that he's allowed to daven to whichever direction he would like. Tamalim, the pasuk tells us V'chavin Psichen Le B'Yilise Neged Yerushalayim, and he opened windows in his upper level towards Yerushalayim. This is a pasuk once again from Daniel. We had mentioned psukim from Daniel yesterday, talking about how Daniel davened, and this one's telling us that Daniel had opened up his windows and he faced Yerushalayim. So a person is to be facing Yerushalayim when they daven. Yachol Mishabol L'Gai L'Kain. You might think that Daniel only did this once he got to Galus, once he got outside Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, but in Eretz Yisrael he didn't do so. Talmud Lemer, that's why the pasuk says Kol Kabel Dehava Aved Min Kadmas Dana, exactly as he used to do before this. Now Yachol Yehem Espal Shlashim B'Chol Shah Sheyirtzeh. One might think that he's allowed to daven these three tefillas whenever he wants. So the Gemara tells us, Kfar Pirish David already said very clearly, Erev Vavayker Tzahorayim, evening, morning, and afternoon, and that's where we have the timing for Ma'ariv, Shachris, and Mincha. A person might think that he could raise his voice while he's davening to the point where other people around him could hear him. Pirish B'Chana, it says by Chana very clearly, V'Chana hi medaberes al liba. Chana was speaking to her heart, meaning she was davening quietly. Now what's the story with Chana? Because we're going to be talking about Chana for a bit over here. So this is referring to Chana, the mother of Shmuel HaNavi, and this is when she was in Mishkan davening that Hashem grants her a son. Now Yachol, you might think because of this, that Yehem Har B'Lev, a person could just think tefillah in their heart, as it does say Medaberes al liba. So that's why Talmud Lemer, the pasuk says, Raks Vasa Nois, only her lips were moving. HaKetzad, Marchesh B'Sif Saisav, a person should say the tefillah quietly with their lips. Meaning a person doesn't think the tefillah, but he doesn't say it loud enough that other people could hear him. And Rabbi Yesi Bar Chanina, Min HaPasuk Hazeh At Lamad Arba Dvarim, from this pasuk of Chana, you learn four things. Number one, Chana hi medaberes al liba, Chana was speaking to her heart. Mikan, from here we learn, Shat Tefillah Tzricha Kavana. A person can't just mumble off the words without thinking about them. It has to be on the heart. A person has to be focusing on what they're saying. Raks Vasa Nois, the pasuk says, only her lips are moving. Mikan, over here you learn, that a person has to actually move his lips and he has to mouth, he has to say the words. Her voice couldn't be heard. From here you learn that a person shouldn't raise his voice and daven. And lastly, the pasuk says, Eli thought that she was drunk. From here we learn that a person who's drunk is not allowed to daven. Now we'll say the Chanan Bar Abba Pliga. The following thing from Chanan Bar Abba argues with what we just said, and we're going to see from here that a person is allowed to daven out loud. The Chanan Bar Abba Amar L'Chavraya, Chanan Bar Abba said to his colleagues, Meimar L'chaim Milsa Tavsa, I'm going to tell you something good, the Chametz L'Rav Avid, that I saw Rav doing, V'Amar Sa Kumi Shmuel, and I said it over in front of Shmuel, Become Minash Gal Pumi, and he got up and kissed me on my mouth because of this thing I told him. Baruch Atah, when Rav said Baruch Atah, Shecheach, he would bow down. Bala Haskiras Hashem, right as he was about to mention Hashem's name, Zekev, he would straighten himself up. And Shmuel said, V'no Amr's Taima, I'm going to give a reason to this. It says in the pasuk, Hashem Zekev Kefufim, Hashem straightens the bent. So that means that by the time a person says Hashem's name, he shouldn't be bent anymore, he should be straightened. Now the only way Chanan Bar Abba could know that this is what Rav was doing is because Rav must have been saying it out loud. So we see that a person is allowed to daven out loud. But now Rav Ami argues on what a person is supposed to be bowing down by and straightening up by. It's not logical. It says in the pasuk, he was humbled before my name. So that means that when a person says Hashem's name, he should be in a state of humility, which means he should still be bent over. Now Rav Avin said that's not so, because ilu havaksiv bishmi nichashu havayos. If it would say in the pasuk bishmi, at my name he was humbled, so then you'd be correct. But les ksiv ela mipnei shmi nichashu. It says mipnei shmi, before my name. What does that mean? Kaidam ad shaloi hizkiras Hashem kvar nichasu. Before he mentioned the name, then he was in a state of humility. But when he mentioned Hashem's name, he wasn't in a state of humility, which means a person is to straighten themselves before they say Hashem's name. Rav Abba Bar Zavda matzah b'kala. Rav Abba Bar Zavda would daven out loud. However, Rabbi Yoina kad have a matzah b'kinishta. When he would daven in the base Knesset and Shul, have a matzah b'lechisha, he would daven quietly so as not to disturb other people. However, kad have a matzah b'beis, so when he would daven in his house, have a matzah b'kala, he would daven out loud. Adi yalfun b'nei beisei tzloisei minei, until the people of his house learned davening from him. They didn't know how to daven beforehand. They didn't have Sidurim. People would daven by heart. And he davened at home loudly enough that the people of his household ended up learning what davening was from him. And Rav Mana says, the people of my father's household, they learned davening from him because my father did the same thing. He davened out loud. Now the Gemara addresses where we get our three tefillas a day from. Where do we get these three tefillas from? What do they correspond to? So Shmuel Bar Nachmani Yomer, he says as follows, they correspond to the 3 times during the day that the day changes on people. In the morning, a person needs to say, I thank you, Hashem, that you took me out from the darkness to light, and that's Shachris. B'mincha, tzarich adam loimer, a person has to say, the same way that you gave me the merit to see the sun in the east, so I have merited to see it in the west. And that corresponds to Mincha. And Ba'erev, in the evening, a person needs to say, the same way that I was in the darkness, and you took me out to the light, that was this morning, so too you should take me out of this darkness into light, and that's my riv. Now, a different opinion, Rabbi Shubal Levi Amar, he says, Tfilah is me avos limdum. We learn the Tfilah is from our avos. Tfilah shachar me Avram Avinu. We learn Shachres from Avram Avinu. It says in the pasuk, Vayashkim Avram ba'boker. Avram got up early in the morning, Ela makam asher amad sham lifnei Hashem, to the place where he stood over there before Hashem. And ve'in amida ela tefillah. Amida is referring to davening. Kama the like it says in the pasuk, Vayamid Pinchas vayifalel. And Pinchas was oimed. He stood and he davened. Tfilas hamincha mi Yitzchak Avinu. We learn mincha from Yitzchak. It says in the pasuk, Vayete Yitzchak lasuach basada. He went to talk in the field. And ve'in sicha ela tefillah. Sicha is referring to tefillah. Kama the like it says in the pasuk, Tefillah la'ani kiyatov. V'lifnei Hashem yishbach sichai, and he pours forth his speech in front of Hashem. And the beginning of the pasuk says tefillah, and lastly tefillas ha'erev, my rev is miyakov Avinu, was learned from Yaakov. It says in the pasuk vayifga b'makom vayolin sham. He was pageya, he encountered the place. Vein pageya el tefillah. Pageya is referring to tefillah. Kamad the like it says in the pasuk yifga una b'Hashem tzavakos. But Aymer also says al tisa ba'adam rino tefillah v'al tifga bi. So we see that pageya is tefillah. So we learn my rev from Yaakov. Now Rabbanan say tefillah is mitamidim gamru. We learn our tefillos from the Tamidim, from the carbon tamid that's brought in the Beis HaMikdash. Tefillas ha'shachar mi tamid shel shachar. Shachris in the morning is learned from the tamid shel shachar. As it says in the pasuk, Esa keves mem gim lamed beis atap echad tasav ha'bayker, and one lamb shall be done in the morning. That's referring to the tamid shel shachar. And tefillas ha'mincha mi tamid shel bein arbaim, and mincha is learned from the tamid shel bein arbaim. It says in the pasuk, Esa keves ha'sheni tasav bein arbaim. So